It's Thursday again, tell everybody to lock in, grab some popcorn, a drink, and go and throw your AirPods in. It's the 1 hour show, constantly speaking facts. Bulletproof stats are always shooting from Matt. And when it comes to Kyle, you getting numbers and style. Jake is gonna educate you, he has that knowledge on file. Players, step your game up, don't be sluggish or lazy. Or Jimmy J might hit you with a shaky baby. Catch him on YouTube or any podcast platform. Breaking all the news down like Shaq does the backboards. No hot takes, this is where the hottest debate's at. Now kick your feet up, cause it's time for straight facts.
What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Straight Facts, a sports show that educates and entertains, brought to you by the Up On Game Presents Network. Make sure you're following them wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, they're on YouTube, they're everywhere you are because they have so much content and so many good podcasts and shows and artists going down, which includes this podcast, Straight Facts Podcast. It's your boy, Jimmy J. I'm here with my guy, Stat Matt Robinson, no Jake Galley. He actually had like wedding duties to do today. He had to go see a wedding venue. So for those Straight Facts listeners, I don't know if I just kind of outed Jake on something. I hope I didn't. But for those Straight Facts listeners who don't know, Jake actually just recently got engaged to his longtime girlfriend, Sarah. So congrats to them officially on the Straight Facts podcast. Of course, yes. Our guy settling down, tying a knot, getting out of these streets, Stat Matt. You and I both got to get out of these streets, but Jake is doing that. So, of course, we'll miss him for the pod today, but we're going to hold it down. But, Stat Matt, before you get into it, how you been doing lately, man? What's been going on?
I've been doing good. I had a really nice Christmas with the family, and Christmas Eve, not as good as Christmas Day from a sports watching wise, just as an Eagles fan.
You guys took a tough one. Yeah, you
guys took a tough one. I'm in good spirits. I feel good. Dealing with some personal apartment crap that's frustrating, but overall I'm at 8, 9 out of 10.
There you go. It's funny because I'm also like kind of in that process of searching for an apartment, and that's not it's just not a fun.
No, the guy sent me the lease and it was not filled out.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's a grueling process.
Like, I'm not going to sign something that doesn't say a rent.
You mentioned the holidays, so real quick before we get into it, best gift you got?
Best gift I got is coming in the mail. It's a Reggie White USFL jersey when he played in the USFL.
You have all like that's your thing, going to get like the jerseys that no one else would ever not even find, but like think of to look for. Like I wouldn't.
Well, that's my dad. My dad started with that like last Christmas, and I really liked it, so he kept going. So
no, your dad's got like unique jerseys.
I got a NFL Europe T-shirt for the Barcelona Dragons. I didn't know what they were. I was like, "Who are the Barcelona Dragons?"
This is the stuff you get for Christmas. Like this is
I get like normal clothes too, but like like a couple T-shirts. Couple T-shirts are like $20 each. Probably right. Like that's kind of cool. Like for him to look for.
Best thing I got an air fryer. So my mom's like giving me, stuff for preparing for me to move out and stuff. And honestly, it was like, my sister's unwrapping a MacBook and my other cousin's unwrapping AirPods and other stuff. I unwrapped this air fryer and I was like a kid who got his first like Tonka truck. Like, I was so excited when I unwrapped this. I think the air fryer is the best invention of the 21st century. Like think of the things that have been invented this century. You think of all the big things we used, the car last century, 2 centuries ago, the phone last century, the web last century. Like all this technology was in the 20th century. In the 21st century, what beats an air fryer? Like what beats the versatility of an air fryer? Cell phone, 20th century. We had all this stuff. It's been out. I'm talking about since 2000 on. It's the air fryer. The air fryer and heated seats and steering wheels in cars. That's the 2 things. And drones. I'll give you a drone maybe over an air fryer.
Less people get use out of drones, but everyone can get use out of an air fryer.
When a drone can cook bacon, chicken, salmon, vegetables all in the same tray,
you're sleeping on the best invention of the 20th century, though. It's the microwave.
20th century.
Oh, yeah, 20. Like the
20th century really popped off.
The microwave's the most underrated utility. Like, can you imagine like living without a microwave? Like,
no. You want to talk about? We can get in this on a different day. But for appliances, the 20th century really popped off, didn't it? The 20th century really did its thing. That's like the appliance kind of mecca or revolution there. All right, let's get into some real sports talk. Because we are still in this great time where we're juggling, talking about NBA content, talking about NFL content, right? So we decided as a podcast that we're going to stick to the NFL this week mainly, and then go NBA for the next 2 weeks and kind of let this wild card race decide itself. But we're still going to get into a little bit of previewing wild card talk and NFL playoff race talk. And we've titled it, so you're saying there's still a chance? We can play the sound bite, play the clip.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
So we're going to talk about the teams who are looking to either get in the playoff race or hold on to their playoff position. So we'll start with the AFC, because the AFC is much more simple in that regard, because it's really a kind of a two-team conversation. And when it boils down to it, it could be a one-team conversation if they handle their business. And that's the Miami Dolphins, really, who are holding on to that unclinched 7th seed in the AFC right now at 8-7. But the elephant in the room, the biggest question is they're not going to have Tua. They shouldn't have Tua for the rest of the season. That's a whole other conversation that we can gladly get into at another time. That 3 concussions in one season, something is wrong. The system has failed if one guy is sustaining 3 concussions in one season and is still playing. But besides the point, the Dolphins are 0-2 with Bridgewater and Thompson this season and scored just 16 and 17 points in those games. They faced the 2 teams chasing them for the wild card spot, which are the Jets and the Patriots. So it's all division for the Dolphins to end out the season. And the Jets are right behind them looking for that spot. But we'll stick with the Dolphins' point of view for now. And Stab Matt, based on kind of just what you're seeing numbers-wise and football-wise, like what are the chances that the Dolphins hang on to this 7th and final wild card spot?
I think they're going to choke it away. And I'm going to be honest, I'm rooting for that to happen.
Damn.
The way they've handled this Tua situation is gross.
Yeah, it's pretty
and
bad.
Disgusting, and they don't deserve to make the playoffs. Like, I obviously we could get into another time, but like, I think they should probably like go severe and do like a Sidney Crosby type situation. In hockey, Sidney Crosby had concussion issues. He sat out for a whole year and a half before he came back, and he went on to have obviously the rest of his Hall of Fame career. And risking this with Tua is, one, obviously terrible for Tua's life in general as a person, but also if you're just speaking from a selfish point of view as a sports fan, it's robbing us of someone who could be a really good quarterback if you destroy his career with concussions early. And I just think you have to punt this season, or if you can win a game with Teddy Bridgewater, then good for you for winning. But I don't think you can play Tua the rest of the year. And I think the Patriots are in the middle of a very similar collapse after their Raiders loss, and they had a nice little comeback against Cincy, but they did the most un-Patriots thing ever. I swear, if Tom Brady hands the ball off to Stevenson, he doesn't fumble, but because Mac Jones hands it off to Stevenson, he fumbles and they lose the game. And it's just they just don't have that Pats magic anymore. And I think the Jets would be the most interesting team in the playoffs from if you're looking at a non-Tua Dolphins, because they're a really interesting team. And the Jets, they control their destiny fully. They play Seattle, who's also tough, battling for a playoff spot, and then they play Miami. If they win their 2 games, they're in. So they control their destiny as much as the Dolphins do. So it's really an 8-3 team missing the playoffs is a very rare situation, but it does happen from time to time, and I think the Dolphins will be the next team to do that. Last team I can remember was like the Brett Favre Jets.
Yeah, but it's the reason why I kind of agree with you and why it's kind of a choke away. Like originally when you said they're going to choke it away, I was like, I don't know if it's a choke job, but going from 8-3 and missing the playoffs and skidding like this right before playoff time is kind of what makes it that choke away. And they don't have their best team to catch themselves. Like we've seen teams catch themselves right before they go in that skid to take them out of the playoffs, but they have their best players and their best pieces available to do it. The question mark we have is no Tua for how long, and if they're smart, it's the rest of the season. So if you don't have your quarterback, your catalyst, one of your best players, if not your best player, when he was healthy, was in the MVP talks. If you don't have him for presumably the rest of the season, you don't have your best options there to kind of catch you and help you, fall or keep from falling in this playoff race. And
also, if they bench Tua with a concussion against Green Bay, I think they win the game, because Tua, without having his proper mind, played so horribly in that fourth quarter. Those interceptions weren't like just bad. They're like, oh my gosh, this third stringer who shouldn't be in the NFL just came in interceptions. And Teddy Bridgewater is the ultimate game manager, and he would have done a quality enough job for them to win that game, and they'd be really in control. And their lack of concussion awareness cost them that game, and it might cost them the playoffs on top of it.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought in the Teddy Bridgewater game manager point, because let's talk about the other side of the coin. And we're not talking about Teddy Bridgewater, the starter from the beginning of the season. We're talking about the Teddy Bridgewater who comes and picks it up midseason. That Teddy Bridgewater wins games. Starter from the beginning of the season, Teddy Bridgewater is wishy-washy. He might start good, start 3-0, and then lose 4 or 5 straight. Teddy Bridgewater, when he got to pick it up midseason, is like Jimmy Garoppolo, Nick Foles-esque, where you're like, oh, he should be he got you thinking he should be a starter by how well he plays midseason. We get that Teddy Bridgewater with the same array of weapons, the same defense, the same team that the Dolphins have had, a team that he's operated for a little bit now. This isn't his first year there. This isn't his first time there.
No, not at all. And
you know what I mean? So
last year he was a 7-7 quarterback, played decent.
There are worse people to be on that bench. Like, I don't.
He went 5-0 with the Saints a couple years ago. Carolina was a mess, but he put up decent numbers with them. I would take him over Mac Jones, just straight up. Honestly, if I had a quarterback for the rest of the season, I'd pick him over Mac Jones, and Zach Wilson probably. But it depends. It's like a mentality situation with the Dolphins, where it's a first-year head coach, they're collapsing, and this is a real, like, prove it to me moment by Mike McDaniel. He had all this press for being, like, that cool kid, listens to the music the players like and stuff, and now you have to actually coach and yell at some people who are screwing up to get this team to get into the playoffs, and I don't know if he can do it.
Interesting point you make. Like, I've never seen it or never thought of it from that angle to think.
But he got all this great press, and he's going to finish with the same record that Brian Flores did. Like,
it's his first season. That's interesting to say, because you're a player's coach when things are going right. You know what I mean? Everyone's gonna love you when you're winning games and you're cool with everyone and you're bumping music. But when you gotta be stern, when you got to say, okay, cut the crap out, like it's not working anymore, we got to refocus, we got to recenter. Like, are you able to kind of get those processes going? Do you know what to say? Do you know what to do as a head coach to get your players back on that track? And on the other side, have you built the respect from your players enough to get them to respond like that? Because everyone responds to fun stuff. Like, no one's going to, like, argue back or combat you or roll their eyes or not be responsive when you're playing their music and you're being cool with them. But when you turn the music off and you say, like, hey, listen up, shut up, we got to do this, we got to change this, that, and the third, do you get that same willingness and response from these same guys? You would think so. You would hope so. They're professional athletes. They're mature men. But we've seen we can't give everyone, that benefit of the doubt. So that's just an interesting kind of behind the scenes, behind the curtain, thing that I don't know if we'll ever be able to actually gauge whether that's true or not, but to kind of see from the outside.
Brian Flores got fired for going 10-6 and then 9-8. And the Dolphins are on the verge of having one of the worst playoff collapses, like, to miss the playoffs in recent memory. And I'm not hearing a lot of heat. I'm just saying there's a double standard.
You think this is one of the biggest playoff collapses in recent memory?
You're 8-3. You're 8-3, and you miss the playoffs.
But
it's not like an 8-3 year, like where you miss the playoffs.
It's a 4-game skid though. And
no, but if they make the playoffs, then they didn't do it. Then if they miss the playoffs, it means they lost one of their last 2 games, or both of them.
Right.
So then like it's not a collapse if they win the next 2 games and finish 10-7. Right. But they're a game or 2 away, depending on how it shakes out, from going either 0-6 to miss the playoffs or 1-5 to miss the playoffs.
Okay, so put it definitively then. Do you think Teddy Bridgewater is good enough? He's got to win 1.
No, I think they lose to the Jets, and it all comes down to whether the Jets can beat Seattle, which is I think it's almost out of the way my opinion. And I don't know who wins, because that Seattle Jets game that's like a perfect matchup from like just 2 teams that are just like dying to make the playoffs, but just aren't quite there talent wise for different reasons. The Jets are a playoff team minus their quarterback. The Seahawks are what I described, but the mentality of those 2 teams is the same. Neither team was expected to make the playoffs before the season, and they're both on the verge of potentially doing it.
Okay, so let's presume that the Dolphins beat the Patriots this weekend, and it comes down to Jets-Dolphins final weekend of the season. And let's also presume that the Dolphins make the right decision and don't play Tua Tagovailoa and Teddy Bridgewater starting. Like, how did the Dolphins beat the Jets with Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback? Because they got stomped even with Tua at quarterback. The Jets hung up 40 points on them, even with Tua. You know what I mean? It was 40-17, even with their starting quarterback.
Well, Tua got hurt. I mean, sorry, not Tua. Bridgewater got hurt. That's where Thompson played. But they allowed 40. That was a Mike White game. So
yeah, come on. It's true.
It's if Zach Wilson's playing, it's not the same fear. And I think it's like one of those like 17-13 type games where someone has the ball with the chance to win, and the defense is going to win it if the Jets wins, because they force turnovers by Bridgewater, and if the Dolphins win it, it's because Zach Wilson gives them the ball.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think removing Tua from the Dolphins makes it a much more even playing field for the Jets. But I feel like, and I could be crazy for saying this, but I feel it. I feel that it's true, and I feel like I can back it up. That I'm not sure offensively the game plan changes a whole lot from Tua to Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was a Zach Wilson game against the Dolphins.
There you go.
Zach Wilson had like mediocre stats. They had 4 rushing touchdowns.
Which is good for
him. They
had
5 rushing touchdowns.
Having mediocre stats is good for him. He didn't throw it away completely. But speaking of that same point, is like you talk about Teddy Bridgewater as a great game managing quarterback. I mean, what have the Dolphins really been asking Tua to do? I've been asking him to light the world on fire. Like, it's being an elite game manager, like get the ball to our special players or our playmakers in space, allow them to make plays. They might have to dial it back a little bit just because Teddy Bridgewater hasn't been in the kind of the flow of the offense and the rhythm of the offense all season. But I think the offensive game plan is still the same in that regard. Is, hey, Teddy, we got some of the fastest players in the NFL on our team, some of the most dangerous weapons in the NFL on our team. 3 of them, really, between Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Raheem Mostert. We got 3 of the fastest players with the ball in their hands. Like, all you got to do is get it to them. Get it to them on time and accurately in the right spot, and we believe that they can make a play and at least get us enough to win that possession, win that drive, win the game. Like, am I crazy? Because I don't think that game plan is too much different with Tua. Hey, Tua, on time and accurate.
I trust Tua to throw the ball downfield more than I trust Bridgewater too.
Really? Down the field?
Bridgewater, Tua's done it. This year, Tua's done it.
Right. But that doesn't mean Teddy Bridgewater.
Very good quarterback.
That doesn't mean Teddy Bridgewater can't. I'm just talking about that skill. You're talking about throwing the ball downfield. I probably trust Teddy just as much as I trust Tua to throw the ball downfield.
People are flipping out about Tua like not being as good as he was because of the Chargers game where everyone did like the Herbert Tua thing, and then the Packers game, which we now know was like almost assuredly because he had a concussion while he collapsed in the fourth quarter. Tua's been like a top quarterback this year. A lot of it's because of the team around him is boosting him, but he has also made really good throws, and he's been better than I thought he would. And I think it's a little disrespectful to Tua to act like Bridgewater can just fill in without missing a big beat.
No, and here's what I said. I said they're going to have to dial it back a little bit, right? Like, I don't think you can just insert Teddy Bridgewater in that offense and he can do what Tua's been doing. But I think that one, if Mike McDaniel is the offensive play caller he's being billed to, I got to see him make the adjustments that I see Kyle Shanahan make and that I see Sean McVay make. Like, they've both had different quarterbacks in their system and have had decent success with the new quarterback, right? So I got to see him kind of make that same adjustment with Teddy Bridgewater and have decent success because he still has that team around him and he still has those weapons around him. But going back to your Tua point, he has thrown the ball downfield with greater success more often than I thought he would this season. I think his average like depth of target downfield, I think, is above like 10 or 11, which I didn't expect. Like, I thought it was going to be around the 8-9 range.
I thought they were going to do like wider screens and crossing routes to let like Waddle and Tyreek catch the ball and run. But no, they've been throwing like deep posts, go routes, and everything.
Now here's the thing. Sometimes, and this is just getting a little bit off tangent. Sometimes, like, the throw still isn't even good, but Tyreek Hill is so fast and has so much separation that there's a lot of times that the defensive back isn't even in position to watch the ball. He's just chasing Tyreek Hill. So the throw can be behind or off target or wherever because the D-back's not watching the ball. Like, he's never going to be able to go and bat the ball down because he's just trying to catch up to where Tyreek Hill is. So however he changes direction, wherever he goes, the defensive back is a step behind him. So I've noticed that. Like, the throw could still be off. That's why Pat could just throw it to a space. Like, you don't have to really throw it accurately. You have to throw it away because Tyreek is already running away from the defender. He's already out of the frame. So just throw it to an empty space where only Tyreek Hill can go get it. And I think Tua is
but like if you look at yards per attempt, like he's first at 8.9 yards per attempt this year. Second place is 8.2. Like, he's lapping the field. Like, because after 8.2 with Hurts, it goes like 8.1, 7.9, and everyone's kind of like bunched. But like 8.9 is like significantly better than everyone else. Obviously, having Tyreek Hill does that, but you can't.
The willingness to do it, right.
You can't just say his incredible improvement over the past year is just because going from 6.8 to 8.9 is just because of Tyreek Hill. He's also put in an offense where he's given confidence to make the throws.
Yeah,
and I don't think Bridgewater is that. I don't think if you put Bridgewater as a starter all year, I don't think he's close to the top in yards per attempt.
I agree with you 100% because there's 17 of those games. I need that Teddy Bridgewater for 17 of them if he's starting. Now I need him for about what? I mean, if we're talking regular season, I need him for 2. If he's still going to be there in the playoffs, I mean, I don't really expect Teddy Bridgewater to win many playoff games when it gets down to like the to the nitty gritty in the AFC playoffs. He's kind of, he's done what we expect Teddy to do at that point. But like, I can ask for it for 2 games. So I can ask for good Teddy Bridgewater for 2 games. Yes.
Let's talk about what the 7 seed means. It means you're going to have to play either Kansas City, Buffalo, or Cincy, and you're not winning that game.
I don't expect Teddy to win that game. Just get us to the playoffs. Thank you. Just don't, you know what I mean? It was already kind of falling, but Teddy, just don't let it fall on your watch. Like, manage this. Make it not be your fault. That's all I'm asking. And I think he could do that. And I think Mike McDaniel and the weapons in that Dolphins offense, if he does that, will be successful. It'll at least put them in a position to win both of these games. Definitely the Patriots game, and it should put them in a position to win the Jets game. He does have a very low bar to set to outduel the quarterback on the other side of the field for the Jets. He has a very low bar,
I know, but the Jets have won despite poor quarterback play this season.
Most of the season, right? Most of the season, you're right. But we will see. All right, so we got to flip to the other conference, to the NFC, because it gets a little bit kind of more complicated as the playoff picture does this time of the season every year. So first of all, the NFC East is still kind of leading the ship in all playoff races in the NFC. The Giants and the Commanders sit in the 2 unclinched wildcard spots, 8-6-1, 7-7-1, respectively. Remember, they tied earlier this season. Neither one of them want to give themselves a clear edge, clearly. The Giants schedule last 2 games. They got Indy at home, and then they go to Philly. And then the Commanders schedule to end the season. They have Cleveland at home, and then they have Dallas at home, 2 home games to end the season, too. Washington is also rooting for the Eagles to clinch Sunday because if they do, Dallas will have nothing to play for in Week 18. Hopefully they can sneak in the back door in the playoffs if Dallas isn't playing for anything and sitting everybody. So before we get to kind of who's on the outside of the NFC playoff picture, these are the 2 teams who are in it right now to hold it together. What are the chances that you say that the NFC East kind of sweeps the playoff picture in the NFC?
I think they do because I think the Eagles win this Sunday against the Saints. I think that's going to determine everything. If the Cowboys have something to play for against Washington, they're going to beat Washington, and I think Green Bay probably sneaks in, but I don't think that's going to happen, and I think Washington beats Cleveland, who's a mess, and Deshaun Watson's been horrible this season, which is very nice to see. And the Packers are the hottest team in football. You can make an argument they're the hottest team in football. If you take out like the top teams, they're playing better football than anyone over the past 5 weeks. But I think it's going to be a little too late because I think the Cowboys are going to rest all their players in Week 18 to prep them for their winner of the champion of the worst division in football in the NFC South, whether it's Carolina or Tampa. You didn't win it yet. So like they want to have a healthy rest going into that. So I think Green Bay is the best team of all of Seattle, Detroit, Green Bay, Washington, the Giants, and I think Green Bay is the best team, but they started their run too late. And I think Washington's going to eke into that 7 slot. And that 7 slot is different from the AFC one because, again, I still think the Vikings stink. They're going to be that 2 seed.
That's true.
Maybe.
I mean, no. That's true that they're going to have to play Minnesota.
San Fran could get the 2 seed if Minnesota loses a game and San Fran wins. But as of right now, Minnesota's a 2 seed, and that's a game that all 5 of those teams can win.
So Washington right now is holding one of those last wild card spots. And they made it significantly harder for themselves to keep that last wild card spot with the news that dropped today that Carson Wentz will be starting for them this weekend after, I guess, just having the confidence in them to take the field. I'm not sure what's going on, but so where does that put Washington? Because in theory, they got their starting quarterback back, but they got the quarterback that they were struggling with and are now not playing the quarterback who they seem to have some magic with in Taylor Heineke. So what does this say about Washington to you? Does this make you more nervous? Are you still as confident that they're going to keep it? What's going on?
Their quarterback hasn't been the reason why they've won these games.
No, but Carson could be the reason why they lose them.
Yeah, I know that. But,
you know.
I think of Carson and Heineke as kind of like a wash, and I think I'd prefer Heineke over Wentz because of like the team chemistry aspect. But when I'm talking about 2 games against Cleveland and Wentz did lose to Jacksonville.
I was about to say Wentz only needed one of them things, and it could come down to that again, Matt.
Like, where it's like Cooper Rush beating Carson Wentz, in a playoff. I'm talking myself into that now. I'm talking myself into it.
But I'm saying,
I don't think it's going to happen.
But Washington is putting themselves in danger of what Indy did last year. Like this time, they gave themselves a little bit of a run. They gave themselves 2 games instead of 1. But Indy didn't know it was going to come down to 1 game. Wentz
was better last year than he has been this year,
which is even scarier.
I mean, Wentz's performance against Jacksonville, he's carried that to his tenure in Washington so far.
So which is, I mean, which
and
is just it's building the question for me of why.
well, Heineke was really struggling against San Fran, and he went out kind of banged up. So I think
Yeah.
they'll take a fully healthy Wentz over a banged up Heineke, which I don't think is like. I think that you can defend that move. I don't think it's like you're picking between two kinds of like stale foods for what you're gonna eat, but you only got two options.
No,
So-
you're picking. It's like picking the really good like pizza that's a couple of days old, or eating like the fresh like nasty food that just was made. You know what I mean? It's like neither are really good options, but like I guess I could justify eating the good food that was the nasty food that was just made and fresh. I can justify that. So let me give that a chance. That's kind of how I see this one playing out. But
yeah, the
nasty
team
food's not gonna get the job done.
the team I think has the least chance is Detroit, and their run was fun, going 6-1 with their only loss being like a really close game against Buffalo. But like Carolina worked them, and it's like, oh yeah, the Lions can't defend the run at all, and they have to face. Although the Bears are tanking, the Bears have a really good rushing offense, and then they have to face Aaron Jones week 18, and they're not going to beat the Packers if the Packers have a shot to make the playoffs. And they're not beating the Packers in Lambeau, where they're 3-28 in their last 31 games in Lambeau.
Okay, let's get into that a little bit, because the Seahawks, Lions, Packers are still all alive at 7-8. You talked about the Packers a little bit being the hottest team in football. I'd probably have to agree with that, but we can start with Seattle first, who the last two games are against the Jets we talked about, and against the Rams, both at home. But they are on a 3-game losing streak right now. Lost five of their last 6 before that, and Geno Smith has kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And the 3-game losing streak kind of coincides with that. An 83.9 passer rating, 6 yards per attempt during this 3-game losing streak. So Seattle they were holding on to that wild card spot for a little bit. That final wild card spot, they're battling. And now they're reeling in the NFC. Like we talked about the Dolphins reeling in the AFC, but they don't have the excuse of the quarterback being hurt. Their reason is their quarterback is playing poorly. So, and I don't think Seattle has the team that they've had in the past to kind of make up for bad quarterback play. Because to be honest, Seattle was in a position most of this season that people didn't expect them to be in. Hell, that they probably weren't supposed to be in. Like Geno wasn't supposed to have them even in this position at 7-8 on the outside end, kind of looking for a playoff berth. He was playing above expectation. Now that he's playing subpar or even towards our normal Geno Smith expectation, they're reeling. So he's got to go back to playing better than expected for them to get into the playoffs or to get back to the way they were playing, because they're not built around him like Seattle teams have been in the past. And to the construction of the team's credit, they weren't supposed to be. Like that wasn't the goal for this year. That wasn't the plan for this year. So good for them for being in this spot, but I'm not sure they have what it takes to, kind of do it in spite of Geno if he's not going to play better.
And if you look at just team performance as a whole, they beat the Giants, which on paper is a good win, back like around Halloween. And then like you beat the Cardinals by 10, the Cardinals stink. You lose to the Bucks are below 500. You lose to the Raiders are below 500. You barely beat the Rams, and the Rams stink. You lose to Carolina, who's below 500. Then your offense can't get anything going against San Fran or Kansas City, who are 2 Super Bowl contenders. They're just not that team. They're not there. I talked about how I hadn't really decided about the Seahawks-Jets game, and I'm really kind of leaning towards the Jets, because I really just think this Seahawks their 6-3 start was kind of like a mirage. Like, yeah, the Chargers played like crap, like they do in weird games this year, and that's a good win, but that's October, and like you beat the Lions, you barely beat Denver. Like it's nothing about their season is impressive. Like they're beating teams that aren't good, with the exception of the Chargers, who I think are good. And like they've settled back to what they are, where they're where they're a punchy team, but they're not quite there.
They're not a bad football team.
And it's not a disappointment either because they came out of nowhere and they have the Broncos draft pick and their own draft pick. So they're in a really good spot. But I think this is kind of like, oh, you ran out of magic, Cinderella, it hit midnight. Like you're not gonna. They might be eliminated when they play the Jets this weekend.
I don't even think it was a kind of running out of magic thing. I think it was a product of them not playing their best ball when other teams play their best ball. Like good teams play their best football in December, late November, December, and then great teams play their best ball in January and February.
And you have the opportunity. You're playing the NFC South as your NFC division, and you go 0-4. Like you're missing the playoffs.
No, you know what I mean.
You go 0-4 against the NFC South. Like you're not. Sorry.
A good football team doesn't do that. You know what I mean? Like I think it's like this isn't the time, and I don't know. It's weird. You make this case for the Dolphins, like if they're not playing their best ball, if they're a good football team or not. But really good teams, playoff teams are playing their best ball now. So that's
but like the Dolphins looked really impressive against Buffalo like a week ago,
right?
And Dolphins have games where they look like a top tier team, and then they have games where they completely struggle. And the Seahawks, I don't think, have had a game like they beat the Chargers by 14, which is a good win, but the Chargers aren't like this staple of like consistency,
right?
As we know.
Right. We got to move through these next two teams in the NFC quick, and I do want to get to them though because they're two interesting teams, two teams that have turned this NFC North division on its head, and the race for the division is over. But it's still like turned into like, oh, this is a good division again for wild card reasons, and that's the Lions and the Packers. We'll start with the Lions, who end their season against Chicago at home and then going to Green Bay for what could be a little bit of a showdown. But for that Green Bay game, they've lost 28 of the last 31 games at Lambeau. That one's not looking good. But before last week, before losing to Carolina, they were 6-1 going into that game, and it looked like that one looked like the magic was over. That one looked like the Lions got deflated a little bit. Carolina, who has absolutely nothing to play for, has nothing going on. Oh, no, it's not true. Oh, my God. I guess that's not true.
If Carolina wins their last two games, they win the division. If Carolina beats you guys...
They're not going to beat us. 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 The Carolina's not going to beat us. But anyway, Carolina, who's having a down and out season, has much less to play. I guess not much less to play for every division to play for. But that isn't nearly the team that the Lions were showing that they were. Come in and stun the Lions in a lot of people's eyes and kind of end this little run that they were having. So what are the chances you think the Lions kind of sneak their way into the playoffs after that?
Well, again, I don't think they can beat Green Bay. I think the Lions learned how to win too late in the season because they have like impressive games. The Lions, like I was talking about how the Seahawks don't have any impressive. Like I've like the Vikings are 12-3, and I still think they stink, but they are 12-3, and they beat the Vikings by 2 scores. They blew out Jacksonville, who's played really well recently. They barely lost to Buffalo. They beat the Giants, who are a playoff team, by multiple scores. They even beat Green Bay, and they beat the Jets, and Carolina just like whooped them on the ground. And I think they could be like Jared Goff has proved to me that he's not trash this year. He could be a Kirk Cousins tier quarterback. I think if you flip Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff right now, the teams have the same records. I think that next year could be a fun year for the Lions, but it's always hard to count on the Lions.
Yeah, Jared Goff definitely put himself in kind of mid-tier category, and good for
like he's not just a product of McVay.
Yeah, good for Jared Goff. He has absolutely every ability to slide right back down to goofy next year, and I don't put it past him. But for this season, yeah, he kind of bumped himself up to mid-tier quarterback. But you mentioned kind of what Carolina did to Detroit on the ground, and that's kind of been their Achilles heel, the weakness all season. They ranked 30th and opponents yards per carry and 28th in rushing yards all season, and Carolina was just all over on the ground. And what does Green Bay do? use their running backs really well. Aaron Jones ranks third among running backs in yards per carry over there in Green Bay. They also have A.J. Dillon. So if you can't stop running backs, if you're not good on the ground or even good at handling running backs, Green Bay is going to make you pay. Going to take a lot of pressure off of Aaron Rodgers, allow him to find his receivers, and that's how Green Bay, kind of beat you. So if the Lions, if that recipe repeats itself, you're absolutely correct. The Lions don't beat Green Bay. And for however that plays out in the NFC playoff picture, now you have Aaron Rodgers maybe playing for a playoff berth in that last week, and now riding a hot streak that we've only seen him do one other time. And the last time,
the NFC title game.
And the last time they went pretty far in the playoffs. So, what are the chances that you see Green Bay sneaking in? Like, say that happens. Say it sets up for a showdown against the Lions in Lambeau for the playoffs on the line. How do you see this playing out for Green Bay? Like, what does this do?
Green Bay's in. If it all depends on what Washington does.
Right.
Is like, will the Eagles collapse, or will the Eagles lose to the Saints? Which, if they do, I think Green Bay gets in. And will Carson Wentz? I think Washington gets in. Will also Carson Wentz could collapse against either the Browns or Cooper Rush, which is possible. But I still think Washington is more likely than Green Bay. But if you're the Vikings, you're really rooting you play Carson Wentz in the playoffs and not Aaron Rodgers.
Very true. You said the Lions learned how to win too late in the season. I think that's the Packers.
I think it's kind of both of them.
It's both of those.
1 in 6 is
ways.
Really, it's impossible. It's like so tough to come back.
Yeah, it's come back from. But in different ways, right? The Lions just have to they just got to learn how to win in general. And the Lions were a product of losing a lot of games by one score or by losing the turnover margin by one. Like the ways that teams that don't know how to win lose games. Like you don't know how to hold on to these leads. Like that's why Green Bay just had to learn how to win with brand new pieces or with a brand new offense, brand new weapons for Aaron Rodgers. Like they had to learn how to fill this void of Devontae Adams, which was so much of their offense. And like in this new era of NFL of air raid offense and putting on the points on the board, we lost our biggest air threat. And our best weapon now became our two running backs, which is, kind of hard to beat these teams in the NFL who are throwing all the time. And we still have, a 4-time MVP quarterback who, we're going to want to throw the ball a lot. So that's how they had to learn how to win. And they hit that stride a little bit too late in the season. Like it's not like Aaron Rodgers might miss the playoffs. Like he truly may just be running out of time this year. And
if you look at the Packers, like during their little hot streak, Rodgers hasn't played fantastic. Rodgers played better than he did earlier in the season, but like he's still thrown like more picks than he usually does. Like 11 picks. Rodgers doesn't throw picks. That's kind of
that's
his like the best in NFL history at not throwing picks. He's the lowest interception percentage in NFL history. And he's thrown 11, which he hadn't thrown since his 2008 rookie year. And like it's the defense and running game, which is why they've kind of come back. And Rodgers has played well, but just not Aaron Rodgers.
Right. All right. So that is kind of the playoff picture as it sees right now on both the NFC and the AFC. Like we said, the AFC is a lot more simple. It's just kind of the Dolphins and just battling for that 7th and final wild card spot. The NFC gets a little bit thicker, but if the Giants and Commanders both handle theirs, it'll be the
Giants
NFC
are in. They're not losing to Indy.
What? Yeah, I would say that too. I'm pretty confident in saying that too. But it's still not 100% a certain. If we're not a certain, then neither are the Giants. I'm putting it that way. So, like we said, the NFC is a little bit more thick. But Stat Matt, 2022 is almost up. I can't believe it. This is actually the last episode of Straight Facts of this year before we turn to 2023. So, of course, man, we got to do a little bit of year in review and kind of go back and talk about the best moments for us personally this year. So, the top 5 moments for you, Stat Matt, sports moments of the 2022 calendar year. You can go through them kind of quickly and kind of just rattle them off. But you got 5 of these moments, man. What was your top 5?
Top 5, number 1, Harper home run to win the pennant.
I mean, that's beautiful. Go 5 to 1. I want the one you just told me what the one was.
Number 5 is, well, it's good that it wasn't a big spoiler because obviously it's going to be both of our ones.
Yeah.
Number 5, Embiid's game-winning 3 to beat Toronto in Game 3. I think it's kind of it's kind of forgotten since the first round game, but that turnaround 3 at the gun to go up 3-0 to basically ice the series.
This is the shimmy
beautiful.
game. This is
that was beautiful. And then he gets his face broken, and we go down 0-2 against Miami, and the season's over. But that moment, I
live in the happy moment. You're so trauma.
No. I'm saying that's why that's why it gets clouded and doesn't go higher. But I remember screaming, scaring my dog because she was asleep on the couch, because we were botching an end of game possession, but we actually got it. Number 4, World Cup final, just a beautiful game. So that was such a great game to watch, and I'm so happy for Messi. Yeah. And there's been some really fun Ronaldo fan coping on Twitter that's so deranged. It's incredible. And I'm just happy for Messi. Mbappe was great, but he already won, so it's not even that tragic for him. And
ain't going
back. Messi completed soccer. He did. Yeah. He's done everything. And that was just one of the most exciting things I've watched. And another, again, one of the most exciting things I've watched, Chiefs Bills divisional round.
That almost made my list.
I called people, I called my buddy who lives in Pittsburgh, to talk about the ending of that game, and we're we're not I do that for Eagles games, but did you see that? It was so crazy, and that game was so exciting, and it's just a shame, just from a sporting perspective, that that the Chiefs didn't go on to win the Super Bowl, because it could be kind of remembered more in sports history. But that game, probably the most exciting football game I've watched that didn't involve my favorite team. Number 2, I cheated, but it's just the 2022 Eagles. Just this entire season.
That's not a moment.
I even kind of tried to look through the year to pick the moment, and there's just isn't one specific moment. It's 2017 vibes all over again, and I love it, all the way down to the Christmas album. Man.
I really hope it doesn't come crashing down for y'all, because y'all keep saying that a lot. 2017 vibes. I hope it
2017 vibes. But it's just been such a unexpected surprise that they're this good. And then number 1, Harper home run.
Yeah. A great list. By the way. The Chiefs Bills almost made it for me. I felt like I had to go personal with mine, but I do have some objective ones, but I do really like your list a lot. And we have some repeaters, so I'll go with mine. Number 5 is Nova winning the Big East chip. So my top 5 sports moments of 2022 right here. Number 5 is Nova winning the Big East championship. It actually was on my actual birthday this year, but that weekend, or that tournament, the championship always falls on my birthday weekend. So one of the days, my birthday is kind of be that Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's around there somewhere. So it's been a tradition that me and my dad and my brother started going up there, and me and my friends continued it. Shout out to my guy Spencer. We went up there, and they won it this year or last year. They brought it home in Madison Square Garden. A great game, beat Creighton, and then we went to go and celebrate in New York City afterwards. Won't talk about what happened in New York City afterwards, because New York City kind of beat us up. We'll move on from that. Number 4.
I was wondering why you didn't pick them making the Final Four, but that makes sense.
Actually, I had the Final Four on there first, and I was like, wait, but the Big East chip was on my birthday, so that was a bigger moment. Number 4 is Albert Pujols hitting home run number 700. I almost teared up when that happened, because Albert Pujols is, to me, one of the most model athletes in our era of sports. A guy who sustained excellence for 20 plus odd years, survived an era of home run hitting that was tainted and everything, and get caught up in it at all. And the reason why it was so special to me is because at least to me, I didn't know if he was gonna get it. Like there was a countdown.
I counted it out. Like I looked at his stat. Yeah, this is not gonna happen.
He's not gonna happen. And he got hot. And he got hot.
Yeah.
And he got hot at the end, and he went and got it. And I was like, you know what? That was a great way for an all-time player to get that. Is got to like turn it on at the end. It's like I got to go get something.
For me, I couldn't put something I didn't watch when it happened on my list.
I hear you. Well, I mean, all these other things I watched happen live. All right, the next one that's another one we got repeated. Is the World Cup final. Dude, that's the best soccer game I've ever watched, hands down, by far. I don't know if I could like ever think of a better soccer game from all angles, right? Like the intrigue of it, the magnitude of the moment, what it meant to the sport and the Messi to win, and then the best player showed out. Like Mbappe absolutely did his thing, Messi did his thing. Like it was just beautiful, and it to me kind of proved that soccer is the global sport, is the biggest sport in the world. You can't deny it after that. Because there are people who never even thought about watching soccer, don't even know who these players are just tuned in because they know the entire world is watching. And I don't think people in other countries would say the same about like the Super Bowl. Like, I'm not sure if you weren't already planning to watch Super Bowl, you wouldn't cut it on because something crazy is happening.
You'd have to be a sports fan of it in a different country. This is if you lived in like South Africa and you don't watch sports, you're watching the World Cup final.
Like it was absolutely insane. It's got to go down as an all-time one. Number 2 for me, man. This is a top moment for me because I cannot believe I watched this happen. I watched this live, but the Patriots collapse against the Raiders. The failed lateral by Jacoby. I am almost speechless when I think back on this. I'll never forget exactly where I was on my man Jutt's couch watching both. I think the Buccaneers game at this time on the big screen and Red Zone on his laptop. And Scott Hanson is just perfectly timed on the Patriots Raiders game. And I watched this and I'm like, that's the most wild ending I've ever seen. That's the most wild ending I've ever seen. That's why it's on my moments list, because it is by far the craziest ending, not to a football game, but to a sports game I've ever seen. Like what? And at the time kept the Raiders playoff hopes alive. Like if they lose, they're out of it. And that's how they keep the playoff hopes alive, by that.
And it was Chandler Jones stiff arming Mac Jones.
What? A Bill Belichick team did that? What? No, absolutely no way. Like that's, bro. It's the funniest ending to a football game ever. You can't replicate it. And then number 1, of course, you had it too. Everyone in the Philadelphia area probably would have this if you asked them what their top sports moment of the year was. And it was Bryce Harper, the 3-run home run in Game 5 of the NLCS to clinch it. And the reason why that was the number 1 to me is because I was there. Like I saw that live. And just I've never felt that kind of like experience, never like experienced a stadium rock like that before. Shout out to my guy Titani, who invited me down to the game with him and mom and his brother to go see that. Like an all-time moment, man. Like that'll be not only the top moment for me this year, but that might be my top sports moment ever, just because I got to see that live. Like the guy who we paid an arm and a leg and everything else for delivered exactly what he was supposed to, exactly when he was supposed to, exactly how he was supposed to. Like he checked all boxes in that moment, man.
It just fit perfect because like
his contract.
The rain like kind of made us throw the game away, kind of, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so frustrating. This is happening. But then you get the runner on and Harper up, and you're thinking, well, like we got a chance just because Harper's up with a runner on, and then boom, and boom. It's like movie script.
No, you know what I mean.
Well, if you could have made it better as bottom 9 instead of bottom 8, but
and true, like we had to battle the rain the whole time and make us waver at all. We're out there soaking wet, screaming our head off, and I'd do it all over again if we had the chance. So year in review, I want everyone out there listening to let us know on social media at @straightfacts_pod. Like, what was your top sports moment of the year 2022? We'll find it. We'll retweet it on our socials and make sure to get back at you guys. But it's been a great year's time, man. What you got planned for New Year's, man? How you ring it in?
Well, New Year's is always my mom's birthday, so we usually go down to Maryland with we used to live in Maryland and visit like the Maryland crew and like we go to a Mexican restaurant, Chapala, that's fantastic, and then we celebrate New Year with them, and then New Year's Day we go back and celebrate like the family version of my mom's birthday. So that's
There you
always
go.
fun.
Oh, you always got a planned in New Year's. See, for me, like New Year's is always the most disappointing holiday of the year because I think everyone gets all hyped for it. You build up for it all year, and to me, it just never lives up to expectations. So this year, I say all that, but this year I'm hanging out with all my friends, and I'm planning for that to be fun too.
College football playoffs.
There you go.
New Year's Eve. So.
But I say that because I'm not doing anything crazy big, man. Just hanging out with all my crew at my one friend Chuck's house. So it's gonna be a nice, easy New Year's, and then I'm very cool with that. But we're out of time for this episode of Straight Facts. It was a great one. Before you guys let the new year escape you, make sure you are subscribed and following the Up On Game Presents Network. They do a great job over there with everyone. Plexico Burris, TJ Hushmanzada, and of course our guy LeVar Arrington. But for our guy out there, Jake Galley, getting ready to tie the knot and doing wedding venue stuff, it's been my guy Stat Matt Robinson. I'm James Jackson. These have been the facts.
Straight up.